is the same as it has been now for months. We're getting 10-second data, and the line's right there. You can't hardly see it, but essentially it was straight up. So the communication between the cavern and the sinkhole is still there. The size of the sinkhole continues to grow. It's growing at about 150 to 175,000 cubic yards a month. The acre.
Why is it growing at this point?
Because what we think is going on is the lower disturbed rock zone, the deep one, the deep part of the hourglass, is pretty good size. And we think the sand and gravel from the aquifer is going down through the neck, and it can't go real fast, and it's slowly expanding. And if you look at the recent June survey, the expansion is to the south, which for Highway 70 is a good thing if anything good can come out of this. Going to the south is the way you want to go. But we think the sand and gravel's going down this very narrow neck, and that's why it's slowly expanding to the south.
What is this sand gravel going into?
Going into the broken rock down below. We are not at a stable condition. The fact the cavern is doing this.
So in other words, it's compressing by...
Yeah. Things are compressing in depth. You see the seismic alerts every day. We've been 1, 2, 3. We go 1, 2, 3. That's because things are still happening. And all this stuff is going on. It's reflected in the seismic. It's reflected in the sinkhole. It's reflected in the cavern. And it's going on. And so that's kind of why the sinkhole's expanding to the south. We fully expect the sinkhole expansion will be more towards a southerly direction now that we have an idea what the subsurface looks like. But that expansion could go on for a considerable amount of time.
What about toward the Bayou Corn community?
Right now, it does not appear to be expanding much, if at all, to the west. Early this year, you know, it was expanding to the west, and the trees were sinking and everything else. The expansion appears to be to the south. And if I could show you the picture, it'd show why. The reason is the upper disturbed rock zone, the upper part of the hourglass, is right under the sinkhole. Okay? So the sinkhole had to fill up the holes and stuff in there. Now it's starting to expand to the south where we have the deep disturbed rock zone. But the upper disturbed rock zone doesn't go much beyond the berm, the western berm. So right now, my concern for it expanding further to west towards the community is reduced somewhat, because it appears to be going south. Pardon?
I guess it's following the salt dome itself.
It's following, if I could show you the map, the edge of the sinkhole is tracing the salt dome almost perfectly. I mean, the edge of the, we use minus 10-foot sinkhole contour, it's lining up perfectly, and you can see where it comes out and goes in. So it's following the salt.
If the sinkhole continues to the south and it reaches the bayou, what are the implications? And do we have a contingency plan in place that could help that situation?
We don't have one now, but it's got to be looked at. Okay, part of the problem I keep running into is I'm telling you stuff that's pretty new, and people want answers. I'm telling you stuff that literally we figured out in the last 2 weeks. We haven't taken the next step. What does this mean to protect the bayou, protect the fish and everything? That's the next step.
Have we got a cavity under the rock formation where the sand and stuff is going? Or
No, we think what's going on, the deep rock was broken up when all this started, and now the sand is going down, and we're getting compaction of the broken rock at depth.
You think it'll stop the gas from coming up?
I don't know. I hope it will, but every time I try to make a prediction like that, this situation kicks me in the backside.
I asked you the question earlier, if it would break into the Bayou Corn area, and somebody said Bayou. You gotta realize, Bayou runs, going, Bayou runs on the south side, turns and runs on the south side, and then cuts into Grand Bayou.
Oh, I know.
On the south end, I'm sure you do. But you gotta keep referring to the west side, but it's moving south, so that tells me Bayou Corn's down there on the south too, so.
Yes, it is.
Potentially get there, you know?
That's, now that we have an idea of what's going on with this changing situation, we have to adjust what our response actions are.
Was there not talk of extending the south berm, and is there any point to doing that?
There's talk, I honestly don't know what status the berm discussions are. I'm sorry. I'm just not involved directly in the berms.
Have you texted Brian Kelly?
You know the maximum depth of the sinkhole?
Oh, boy, thanks, John. No, we don't.
More than 500 feet, there's an area that's more than 500 feet, that I tagged this past Friday. We are gonna make attempts to try to actually tag it with a longer tape measure. Went out with the Texas Brine contractor, Miller Engineering. They used a cable rig, it was late in the day. They had some issues trying to get measurements correct. We ended up stopping yesterday afternoon. So I can tell you my tag Friday is more than 500 feet, and we'll try to do it again, and I'll post that once I get it.
And because of this, we're getting John a 750-foot tag line.
Make it even thousand. Yeah, you make it even thousand. The longer the better, huh, John?
The first observation well that was real on the cabinet. How much pressure y'all have on there right now?
Right now, the brine wellhead pressure is about 590 psi.
Why is it at that?
I don't know. There again.
It's gotta be producing gas to be put.
No, it's not gas. They open it, it's all brine.
How long do they open it for?
They have tried to, the max they float out of that is about 40,000 barrels, which is a lot. And they closed it in and the pressure went right back up. This is brine pressure.
Well, what's producing it?
We don't know.
Usually to produce that kind of pressure, you have to have fresh water eating on the salt.
Well, there's things going on we don't know, but I can assure you it's not gas. That's part of the thing we're looking at in the Blue Ribbon Commission with regard to the cavern. If you took all the questions you people have asked here, and they're very good questions, our experts are asking the same ones. We don't have answers right now. I will be around afterwards. I think that's it. We talked about the vent well performance. The cone penetrometer, there were a bunch of questions on that. One thing I want to say on the cone penetrometer, we have set up a detailed technical meeting with Texas Brine next week to go through some of our concerns on, well, all of our concerns on the CPT investigation and how it's being done. Right now, the CPT investigation is an experimental program. DNR has not approved it, and we are meeting next week with Texas Brine and the Tetra Tech representatives to go through some pretty serious technical questions that we've got about it. With that,
I want to thank Dr. Hecox and Don Marlin. They have an enormous task ahead of them. They have been as forthright as they can about it. I want you to know we rely heavily, John relies heavily on what they have to say. And for the calls that we make, we rely upon their opinions and we ask for their best estimate and best opinion that they can. With that, you know, the status quo will remain, the evacuation will remain in place until we get word from them. But as many of you see, that we are in for a long haul and don't anticipate any changes in those orders anytime in the near future. As far as LA-70, those are the ones that are concerned about LA-70, we all are. And as long as the DOTD monitors are picking up that there's no movement and it's not a threat, you know, the goal is to keep 70 open, but they are working, I know Karen and Rick Ward, they're working with the Highway Department to come up with temporary detour routes and potentially other issues to address that situation if it arises. But as of right now, our goal is to hopefully keep the same route open and viable for years to come. At this time, we do have people from Tech. Go ahead.
One question. You just said DNR has not approved the CPT, so I'm approved. So why was it allowed to be done?
Texas Brine is a responsible party.
I'm saying that the DNR is in charge. DNR is supposedly looking for the safety of the community, and if it wasn't approved, why was it just able to experimental process in the community, is what I'm saying?
Could you repeat the question, please?
The CPT test is a test that
The
includes...
question regarding the CPT probes, etc., that Texas Brine had started a protocol to do that. There was some community residents expressed some concerns. I think there was some concerns with some of them. I'll let John weigh in on that briefly. But, you know, from the parish's perspective, I think John did issue a cease and desist order from any further CPT activity on parish right away to further information can be provided. But I'll let John talk about that briefly. And then we do have Texas Brine, I think, is going to talk about that and their update on where they're at on the activities that they're conducting.
As most of you may be aware, there was a CPT operation started, and there was one that was placed this past week on Sauce Pecan near the beginning of the street. And it was reported late last night to me that there was a quarter-size hole in one of the grout locations as well as bubbling coming from it. So earlier this morning I did go out first thing, put my air monitor on it, and I got to a 77 LEL, putting the monitor in the hole. Then wrote an email to Texas Brine and their folks, basically ceasing operations on all parish right-of-ways, and did indicate they were in the process of doing one to complete that one today. But from this point forward, to cease the CPT operations. We did ask in our Unified Command Group meeting that that the Blue Ribbon Commission, and we hadn't officially spoke to the Blue Ribbon Commission, so this is news for them, but for them to evaluate CPT and its effectiveness. The next thing is if the Blue Ribbon Commission would concur that it is an effective tool, then that they would have to address the safety issues. And the third thing we told them is that they also have to address it from a public relations issue. I think that's one thing that we want more work to be done on in all areas, not just the CPT. So as of right now, they have a cease order. CPT operations can continue everywhere else but the residential area. And I'm sure I'm going to have to define what is the residential area, but I'll get that to you tomorrow.
This time, anybody from Texas Brine wants to weigh in on CPT or any other activities of Texas Brine on their property and the ongoing response effort?